this afternoon and be glad that you are here, that you could come today and get some of your questions answered. But there's a lot of misunderstanding about domestic violence. Some people have been told things that are true, some people have been told things that aren't true, and maybe you can sort some of that out this afternoon. It's not necessarily what the newspapers say. They aren't, just because it's in print doesn't mean it's always right or accurate, so you can't always believe what's in the newspapers. I am a minister, and I became a minister to help women who needed someone who understood the dilemma, because I was in an alcoholic, battering, and abusive marriage for 30 years. By the grace of God, I am now capable and able to help others from my experience, and have gone through what it takes to become sane enough and rational enough to go through the process of recovery. That's been documented in my book. So if you are interested in purchasing my book while you're here today, I'll be glad to sign it. If you want to buy it on Amazon.com, it's also available on the computer. It's only $5.95, best buy on the market. What other book can you get for $5.95? It is a chronicle of how it all started as a child and takes me through as an adult into growing into adulthood. And that's how I want to present this program today, is how it happened upon me, so to speak. The victimization kept occurring until I was finally able to get tools to overcome the victimization. And as a child, you don't have that ability. And it takes more than what most people realize to start working on a program of recovery. And that's when your awareness kicks in, you start getting treatment, you start going to classes, you start getting support programs, you start getting therapy, you start maybe taking college classes, every help you can get, you start acquiring. And it might be 12-step programs, whatever. I was fortunate, it seems like I could do it all. Whatever it takes to get well, you can do. And gradually, little bit by little bit, you can start feeling the effects of wellness in your life. And then you can say, goodness, there's something changing, something's happening to me, and I wonder what it is. And it's part of that, and quite a bit of it is chronicled in here, until finally I started to realize my life was totally becoming different than what it had been in the prior and before. One of the big things I noticed that was different was that I had always given away my power. When you are in a situation of battering and abuse, you do not know how to live in a situation where you do not have power. It's a struggle to keep your power. In fact, you are not taught to have power. You are not taught to have boundaries. You are not taught to have any kind of way of protecting yourself. You know, it's just not part of the cards, so to speak. And so empowerment is a very big, important part of getting well. And when I teach at Tacoma Community College, I also counsel women, and helping others to have empowerment skills is a very big, important part. When I first started to realize I could stand up to other people, I could have anger, that was okay to be angry, all these things normal people had in their lives, which actually gave me power. And if those things are taken away from you, if your feelings are taken away from you, it disempowers you or disenchants you, you know what I mean, disenfranchises you from your power. So I had lived in an environment where all those things had been literally removed from my having the power to be who I was. And that's what I wanted to say, is that this is not something that's new in our environment. It has been going on for quite a while. About 10 or 12 years ago, a man named Wayne Kritzberg came to Seattle and said alcoholic families raise abused but not hopeless kids. And he was very involved with what we then called, I can't think of the word all of a sudden, ACOA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. Now, with the program that started at that time, and just a little prior to that time, Adult Children of Alcoholics was very, very much in the limelight of the newspaper and people going to ACOA programs, which were 12-step programs. And the people that were involved with these programs were trying to recover. They were trying to come out of their situations that had put them in this lack of power in their lives, lack of being, what we might say, normal, okay? Now, the problem is these programs seem to have become less and less in the limelight. But the sad part is childhood traumas can grow into hidden time bombs. They don't go away just because the newspapers don't talk about ACOA anymore, or just because they aren't as popular anymore. And so the books are still there, you know, whatever. It doesn't mean things are any better or different. Now, but they have different names and different labels today. And it also has a different perspective. And because of that, there's a different focus going on. This is in this week's Seattle Times, Post-Intelligencer, okay? I don't normally get the newspaper, but for whatever reason, I happened to see this on the front page of the PI, and it says, mental illness, toll on our kids is huge. For youth ages 5 to 19, it's top cause of hospitalization. Mental illness is now the leading reason that people between the ages of 5 and 19 in the state are being hospitalized. New research by the University of Washington has found the most traumatic growth in hospitalization over the decade has been among younger school-aged children who are suffering from depression and disruptive behavioral problems such as oppositional, defiant, and conduct disorders. Mental health experts said yesterday that these children's families cannot get adequate health insurance coverage for the intensive counseling and therapy their troubled kids need, and are ending up in emergency rooms as last resorts. Now, the bottom line is the numbers. The numbers in ACOA and the numbers of these mentally ill children really are basically the same 10 years later. They haven't really changed. Things aren't really different. But today, what's going on? We have this problem going on in our families. We have these problems going on in disorders that are mental health, mental illness, and abusive situations, abusive relationships that are new to our society because it isn't being taken care of and it's not anything being done. And growing incidences of alcohol and drug addiction in parents has led to an increase in stressful home environments that make it more likely that kids will develop mental health problems. Now, that means abuse is not on the way out. What are we going to do about it? You know, it's not improving. It's going to get worse. Why? Because violence is a disease that can be treated, but a disease is chronic, progressive. And a disease can kill. And in an abusive relationship, somebody will get killed. So we have people in those hospitals, people in those relationships, somebody's going to get killed unless some kind of intervention doesn't happen. There is more than what meets the surface of the eye. Now, I don't know how many of you, this has happened about a year ago, the Farrah Fawcett problem, when her boyfriend beat her up. Now, it makes for good media. It makes for good tabloid reading. Now, if you understand the story below the story, there was a lot more going on than Farrah Fawcett getting beaten up by her boyfriend. You know, the pictures are gruesome, you know. They're terrible. You know, the sad part is inside she was gruesome. You know, that's where the real story is, what was going on inside of her. The physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual part of what was happening, okay? I happen to know from some documentaries on television, she was molested as a young girl. That opens her wide open to an abusive relationship. And lower than that, she was probably molested or raped by her father, and that led her wide open to being molested by a stranger. And the public doesn't talk about those things, you know. We've got to start getting honest about what puts people, especially young women, in these situations in the first place. And it's not just women that have these situations, men have them too. Men are also become molested, you know. Men also go through these situations. And they also go through panic attacks. They also go through these experiences. And I think it's how similar victims of panic attacks look to the adult children of alcoholics described in the research. They tend to be caretakers because they had immature parents who demanded that their children take care of them emotionally instead of the other way around. They tend to have a great deal of difficulty accepting and expressing anger. They're angry people, and they don't know what to do with it. They have not had proper modeling. And they are constantly concerned about making everything all right for everybody so that everyone will think highly of them. There's a lot of characteristics that go along with this. And because of that, it becomes very complicated, believe me. And if you want to read lots and lots of situations, lots and lots of the details, various forms of the characteristics of the types of personalities this forms. One of the handouts I passed out was the family roles. This is one of my very favorite handouts about domestic violence, because what it's saying is that we have an alcoholic who married a codependent. Okay, an alcoholic is not an adult. They never grew up. They drank to keep from growing up. They didn't know how to handle adulthood. They stopped growing when they started drinking. They stopped growing when they started using drugs, okay? And here we have a person who was afraid to grow up, so they latched onto somebody else who was afraid to grow up. And we have two immature people hanging on to each other. I can tell you from my experience that's what happened. I was emotionally 3 years old hanging on to somebody who was emotionally 5 years old, and we went through life hanging on to each other. Okay? Now, the characteristics of those kinds of people, he was the alcoholic and he was power hungry. That was what part of what made him run. Power was very important to him. And you ask somebody who's in a excuse me, in an obsessive situation or a marriage of that kind, you know, what's one of the major focuses? And it's power. It's a power-driven marriage. Food, oh man, you wouldn't believe the things that went on at dinner time. And she laughs. She knows, see? People will laugh when they've been there. Rage, my husband was a rageaholic. His way or the highway, you know. Sometimes religion can get involved. Sex, my husband was a sexaholic. Workaholic, definitely covers up your feelings. And on my side of the situation, it said children. Now that sounds pretty strange to have children on the side. I mean, you'd think, my goodness, this lady would be this warm and wonderful, cozy lady, right? You know? I was in a support group in treatment, and this lady is crying. She had 8 children, and she was just fit to be tied. And the counselor said to her, what is going on? You have 8 children, 8 wonderful children. You should be just, you know, things should be going very well for you. And she said, that's the problem. When they're all gone, there'll be no one to take care of me. She had them to take care of her. She was afraid to take care of herself. Children aren't supposed to take care of their parents. We're supposed to take care of them. It was all twisted. Work, again, could go on to tell you I had 3 jobs. Worry, religion, righteousness, sadaholic, and hypochondriac. That was my mother-in-law. Now, when they marry, you get 4 types of personalities. You get the family hero, you get the scapegoat, you get the lost child, you get the mascot. This is typical if you have 4 children. Now in my family, we only had 2 children. I had a son and daughter, okay? So my daughter played the family hero. And for the first part of her life, she was the visible success, and she did what was right. And in her feelings, well, I never asked her, but I imagine she felt inadequate. I mean, that's probably typical for the disease. In fact, you don't usually even feel, so I imagine. But she was the high achiever, and you know, the typical things that went on with the disease, I imagine that felt the ways that would fit the process. Okay. Without help, that particular person would be a workaholic. I can tell you that fits. They would never be wrong. I can tell you that fits. Responsible for everything. The world is on her shoulders, I can tell you to this day, and she's in her early 40s. And she married a dependent person, and I can tell you that fits. Now, with help, that can be changed. So it's not the end of the road that these things occurred. There is help, and it's not hopeless. So with help, she can accept failure. She can learn to accept responsibility for herself. And these people make great executives because they're so responsible. Guess what? She called me up the other day. Mom, I finally got that job I've been wanting. My name went on the door, and I got the pay raise. And she was so thrilled with herself. It's finally working for her, you know. It's not all bad. So she was really happy about that. You know, the scapegoat. Our poor son really went through that. Hostile, defiant, angry, hurt, guilt, takes the focus off the alcoholic. Every year we went up to school. My husband used to call it our yearly pilgrimage. What was going on that year with our son, you know, as far as getting his work in on time? Negative attention won't compete with the family hero. Well, how could he? Because that would break up whatever they had going between the two of them. And we were fortunate in some ways that neither of our kids ended up in jail or prison and some of that kind of thing. However, my husband's brother did. So in some ways we had some positive things going. Now, the scapegoats tend to make good counselors, and they tend to have courage, accept responsibility, and they can see reality when they get help. They can work through these things and have a lot of talents that they haven't seen before. But they have, when they turn the penny over or the coin over, they have to turn it over to be able to, you know, make it work for them. The lost child, when you only have two children, they tend to take on more than one family role. So our son also played the part of the lost child. It's sitting cross-legged in front of the stereo with the headphones over his ears, and I didn't make a sound, so therefore I didn't cause any trouble in the family, and you can't blame it on me. So he was withdrawn, he was the loner, he was lonely, he was unimportant, and it was a relief to me because he was, you know, in this case he was the only one son, you know, and therefore couldn't make a whole ton of problems. He was invisible, quiet, no friend. In fact, the only friend he ever really had, my husband scared off during an anger attack. And it scared him so bad he never really made another friend, which I thought was the saddest thing, because he needed friends. Of any kid around, he needed friends. He was a follower, troublemaker, making decisions, little zest for life. He didn't know how to live. And, you know, he had some problems with living, obviously. With help, he could be independent, talented, creative, and imaginative. And he's late 30s, and he's just now being able to put some of that to work for him. And mascot, for whatever reason, our family is just not supposed to laugh. It's sad. I'm the first one in the family that's really supposed to be able to laugh and have a good time. And so, fragile, immature, needs protection, fear, fun, humor, comic relief, we never got that. I was sitting next to my son-in-law in Boise a while back, and I was watching an old I Love Lucy. Now, I didn't realize when things were knee-deep in alligators and all the depression and lack of humor was just, you know, really thick. You know, there was no humor in that. How sobering it was. And things were starting to lighten up, and there was something, I can't remember the show, but something really struck my funny bone. And I started to laugh. And he looked at me Like, what are you laughing at? You know, like, you, it's really out of order in this house. You know, because he drinks. You know, so, but, you know, mascots generally tend to be the comics. The Jerry Seinfelds, I don't know if his family was alcoholic, but they tend to be the comedians. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying his family was. I have not a clue. You know, but generally that's where a lot of them come from. And so they be the clowns. I happen to know one that was a clown. His family was very alcoholic. So they tend to, when they go into recovery, they give up being the clown. They're fun to be with, and they have a terrific sense of humor. But it doesn't have to come from this sense of needing people to like them out of this negative reason. It's the motivation is different. You know, it's not this deep sense of having to be appreciated or recognized for something that isn't necessary for this lack that's missing. What I wanted to next draw your attention to is characteristics of a batterer. Okay, if you know these people are going to come from families that have characteristics that aren't what you would call the ones you necessarily would see in a normal family, these are the characteristics you would see in people that have grown up a little past that. Psychological abuse, and there is in this case a chart that grows from silent treatment and jokes and insults, ignores feelings, blaming accusations, jealousy, monitoring another's activities, isolation, threats, humiliation, degradation, harming pets, homicide, suicide, and just before that it was they label you crazy. I just recently saw a play down in Oregon where the man in the play, the main character, was labeling his wife crazy. Not too healthy a play. Okay, physical abuse. It goes from deny physical needs, scratch, slap, bite, push, shove, hit, punch, target, hit, throw objects, thrown, choke, burn, beating, poison, use weapons, and then death. Now in my case, there was a lot of deny physical needs, and then it jumped right to choke. Big jump, you know. So you have to just start to recognize where you are on these scales. And when I saw that, this is right out of the battered women's shelter. And when I saw that big jump, my eyes bulged, you know. And sexual abuse, I didn't even realize I was being sexually abused. That's how bright I was. Embarrassing comments, sexual jokes, unwanted touching, ignore sexual needs, treats like a sexual object. Sex is duty, withhold sex is punishment. Control contraceptives, sex after being violent, please forgive me, rape, beat after sexual intimacy, sadism, a death. After death, it must, sadism, something death. There's an A there, I don't know if it didn't print. But anyway, you get the idea. A lot of things go on in a hierarchy, and these are all abusive, and they get bigger and better as they go along. I started to relate to them, and you start to see things you didn't see before. All of a sudden, oh, yeah, that's going on. And I hadn't realized it. All of a sudden, that's going on, and I hadn't I hadn't been aware of that's what you called it, or that's how it fit into the pattern, or that's where it fit in anywhere. Characteristics of a batterer. Well, the one they should put at the top is they can be very, very cunning, powerful, and baffling. You know, they can just charm the pants off of you, so to speak. They're very charming at times. And that's what really led me astray. They can't accept weaknesses or mistakes in themselves, so they blame other people for their problems. That you can go on this page and read it yourself, but there's a lot of information in these pages, and they're all very valuable for people that need this information, because if you know people that are in these situations, they'll hit something in here and it will say bingo. So I would suggest you hang on to these. Well, you're saying, well, I'm painting a pretty dim picture and it looks pretty painful and grim and awful, and yes, you wouldn't want to be a battered and abused wife, and it would be, you know, it was not fun. You know, I tried suicide. He tried to kill me. It wouldn't be a place you wanted to be, I'm sure. Women just don't go walking down the street saying, I'm married to a batterer. This is not something you blurt all over the neighborhood. In fact, you don't blurt it anywhere. It's not a smart thing to do, because if it got back, you pay the price. There was only once that I went for help. Back in the 70s, the police wouldn't help you. I was on the wrong side of the street in Milton. Can you believe that? He said, I was really scared that night. I was really scared. That was a bad night. So I went to the police car, knocked on the window. He was sitting there, and he put his window down, and I told him what was going on, and he said, ma'am, he says, I'm not in your district. He says, you'll have to go to across the street and call your own police district. So I just went home. It was like, it was pointless. Now things have changed, so if you called things, you'd get help. So don't let me discourage you. From the 70s, things have changed. But I've had to learn how you don't go somewhere without money in your pocket. You don't do a lot of things that I used to do. You protect yourself, and the ways you protect yourself, and what that entails today. I hope you picked up shifting attitudes and opinions. I've had to learn for my own protection how to shift my attitudes and opinions about the other person, and how I needed to shift them for myself. I had some attitudes and opinions about myself that were not accurate. I thought I deserved to be treated that way. My mother was beat every night, and if she was beat every night, and I'm being humble, that's the way I'm supposed to be treated. That's what I deserve. And I had to learn that wasn't true. So I had to take what is called an inventory of my thoughts and my thinking and find out what's real and what isn't. So my change of position, you know, is do I deserve to be beaten every night? Current opinion is, you know, I'm being beaten every night. Shift in attitude, no, that's not real. You deserve something better, you know. My ideal is to have a calmer, more pleasant real life, okay? Assuring affirmations, short, simple, positive, as if accomplished. My evening is peaceful, quiet, and calm. I can watch television if I choose. Oh, I could tell you some horror stories about watching television at night. The door got shut, and that's that was the night. Oh wow, the night of one of my suicide tries. Okay. Anyway, so start working on what's real thinking and what isn't real thinking. It's it's really important to know if what's between your ears is real. And then act on the reality, not the fantasy. You'll believe how your life will change. That reality is important. The best part is to reward yourself for progress. Continually nurture yourself for change. Love is a choice. Thy will be done, or thy will be done. It's very powerful to live in God's love. So if you are living with thy will be done, you are living with God's love. Nothing's more powerful than that. What I didn't know is I was living with my will. I was trying to make that imperfect situation perfect, and it was never meant to be. And it just wasn't going to work. And I was trying to make it work. On the next Making Space for Spirituality, I had to, also in my inventory, I had to start removing the things that were in the way of making it work. I had all kinds of things in there that weren't real. Humbly remove my instincts out of proportion. You know, I was in there, I had all kinds of ideas that were just like mountains, you know. Life doesn't have mountains, and they were way out of proportion. And I had to level them down to reality. Humbly remove my negative feelings. What I know today is I don't need those negative feelings. What's real is positive feelings, loving feelings. And I had to do that for my spouse too. You know, he's a child of God too. Maybe he wasn't perfect, and maybe he was a psychopath, which turned out to be true, you know, which was right. And I hooked up with him because it felt comfortable, because my mother was a... I get these mixed, huh? Yeah, schizophrenic. Okay, so they were both mentally ill, and they both felt comfortable, and so the feelings felt comfortable, okay? And so I got hooked into that. But I had to sort it out and figure out what was real again, and look at it from the right point of view. Humbly remove my inappropriate behavior. Okay. Marilyn, let's get rid of what you don't need in your life. Inappropriate behavior. Fear. I don't have to live in fear anymore. Wow, that's freeing. He scared the hell out of me. You know, that man scared the hell out of me. I do not live in fear anymore. I do not have any fear in my life anymore. I am fear-free. And I was in fear from the time I was born. That is an amazing feat for me. So it can be done, and the Spirit can come in to those spaces that fear used to be. So you can change your attitudes. Resentments are what I want. Might not be what I need. Only God knows what I need. But I always get the right thing. And if I demand something, that's going to cause me more pain than you can ever guess. I've got to give up my demands and just appreciate what I have. You know, I can't afford to demand anything in my life, because that puts me in fantasy land. So when I just appreciate God's gifts, then my attitude changes into a place that is real. Now, the thing that happened to me, I was born into a space as a 3-year-old emotionally. My mother was schizophrenic, and I became 3 years old when my dad beat up my mom, and I saw that. I froze in the age of 3, okay? Everything after the age of 3, that's where I was. I was in fear, okay? So what happened was I was a walking 3-year-old. That's what I said. I had to get rid of all that fear. That's why it's such a, you know, such a victory for me. And to do that, that's why domestic violence is 2 little kids trying to fight over who's gonna be the head honcho. 2 little kids, who's gonna be king of the mountain. 2 little kids that are gonna win the game. 2 little kids that haven't grown up and found out it doesn't work that way. They aren't mature. That's not reality. And they're going to punch you out, twist your neck, or whatever it takes to win and make, you know, whatever they can get their way. Okay, domestic violence. It's not one person being better than the other. You know, the one that screams the loudest, they call the police, and that's the one that gets taken off to jail. That's not how it works, and that's one of the myths. It takes 2 to play the game. And domestic violence is a game, okay? And the game is bull in the china shop, okay? And it's not who yells the loudest or who screams the most. It's if I push your button and you scream, I won. It's the quiet one that won the game. It's not, and they won because they got rid of the other one, okay? So, but the one that they got rid of has to pay in jail. Now, the sad part about the whole thing is they really both lose, because you can't win and both lose at the same time. It's a no-win and a no-lose situation. In our situation, they didn't have people going to jail in those days. But what I know is he was this 5-year-old inside. If he'd gone off to jail, that wouldn't have been a win. He needed to go get help. If I'd gone off to jail, yeah, he was literally about 5 years old inside. If I'd gone off to jail, it wouldn't have been a win. I needed help. That's not what we needed to do. So I know today is domestic violence is not so much, let's solve it with prisons. Let's solve it with the police. Let's solve it by making people pay the price or whatever punishment you want to give them, time. Let's solve it with love and compassion and helping them learn tools to grow up and how to make that little child inside become whole. How do you let that little 3-year-old grow into 4-year-old and become a 5-year-old and become a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old? And how do you do that? You do it through prayer and meditation. And you let God come in and shine on that child inside. And you say, God, please heal that. Please heal me and show me how that can grow and make me whole and make me a child of God the way I'm meant to be. So I don't have to go out there and hurt others. I don't have to act out the way I'm acting out. So what I did was I put together, it should be on the chair somewhere, Healing and Uniting the Inner Person. because it's the inner person that's hurting. And jails can't solve that problem. So we need a way to solve the problem, right? Now this is what you feel when we were talking about changing your attitudes and making space for spirituality. This is what you fill your space for spirituality with, okay? Healing and uniting the inner person. Close your eyes and relax your body. Take a deep breath and feel relaxation travel throughout your body. Sense how your body feels. If there are any tight spots, bring light to that part of your body. Feel it relax. Feel your breathing become more relaxed. Slower. Deeper. Fill your lungs with the breath of light, releasing on your out breath any stresses you may have brought with you. Imagine a golden cord running from the base of your spine down through the center of the earth, spreading out like the roots of a tree. This is your grounding cord, and it will allow you to receive a great deal of light into your being. Anytime you feel slightly off or nauseous, check to make sure you are grounded to the earth. Now breathe in more light, coming down from the heavens into the top of your light head. See this light as golden and sparkly, clear and powerful. This is the energy of God, seen and experienced as light and love. As it enters through the top of your head, it begins to fill your entire body, spreading out through your arms and legs until you can feel the warmth of spirit throughout your body. Your body is relaxed and peaceful. Imagine a feeling of peace, of serenity, of letting go, trusting a higher power, that you are loved and protected. Your emotions are growing calm and very still, as quiet as a clear mountain lake that reflects the trees and sun. Feel the blueness of the water and let it wash through your midsection, clearing out your emotional center of any anxiety or fear. Your emotions are becoming still and peaceful, that you can begin to sense the light that surrounds you and is within you. As your body and emotions are quieted, so too does your mind begin to relax, to trust. Allow in more light, seeing the light as clear water that cleanses your mind, washing away any of the old thoughts so that your mind, like your emotions, become like a still lake. Now imagine in your mind's eye a path which stretches out before you and takes you back to your earliest years, and let your divine child lead you back in time to reclaim all the parts of yourself. And with your divine child, follow this path until you begin to see the place where you were born. See yourself enter this house to find your infant self and pick up this tiny infant and go in and search for your toddler self. Find this person and take his or her hand. Now go and search for your preschool self and find her and him and have her or him take your toddler's hand. And find your school-age self and let your school-age self carry your infant. Continue on seeking parts of yourself and perhaps your high school and college-age selves. When you have collected all parts of being, see yourself go to your parents and tell them goodbye. You have come to collect all parts of yourself. It is time to start your own inner family, and you must let go of them in order to do this. Sever any cords that connect you. If you can, tell them that you know that they did the best job they could in raising you, but you must now nurture yourself. Try to stay in your heart, working with the images of your parents until you can say goodbye without resentment. When you are ready to leave, see yourself travel back along the path that you came with your inner family. Take this path until you come to the way of your inner sacred circle, your special inner place of essence. Here you meet your higher self, perhaps the Christ, your spirit male and female, any other being of light who are a part of your inner family of love. Allow yourselves to sit in a circle. Feel the sense that you are all together now, your humanness and your divine. You have brought all parts of you together for healing and integration. Allow the light to enfold all of you, healing any wounds of the child selves which you carry. Picture each part of yourself, the infant, toddler, preschool, school-aged, adolescent, being washed in the light. Let the light cleanse and fill any areas of pain and need. When you sense completion, allow the many parts of you to merge into the oneness of your magnificent beingness, which is both human and divine. Know that your weaknesses has been turned into strength, your suffering into understanding. Claim the magnificent I am, which is you. Be at peace, and when you are ready, return to this time and open your eyes. On the following page, you may want to color the picture and put it in your room. These are affirmations to help you remember, strengthening affirmations so that you can be as strong in your life as you possibly want to be. I am health, strength, peace, happiness, and prosperity. The Spirit of God, which is active in me, flows through my physical body in a purifying, cleansing, healing stream that removes all obstructions and brings peace, health, and harmony to my body. I am well, strong, and vital. I am beautiful, peaceful, and poised. I am eternally youthful. I am buoyant, happy, and free. I shall arise in the morning filled with energy, radiance, and the power to accomplish whatever I find to do. This comes from the Dynamic Laws of Healing by Catherine Ponder. I hope that you have found some interesting information to help you with your life, to strengthen your day, and whatever cause might have happened to you in the past. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to help answer them, or if you don't, that's fine too. But thank you for coming and staying with us.